Welcome back, everyone. This week, we've come to the end. Week 4, Chapter 6, Endings. I want to be honest with you before you open the book. This chapter is going to hurt a little. Steinbeck has been walking us toward it since the very first page, and now when we arrive, it stings. So let's arrive on purpose, slowly, with our mind's eye open. And when you reach the hardest part, don't rush past it. Just let yourself feel it. That's not something to get through. It's the reason we read a book like this at all. And a quick reminder, as always, work from the website. Week 4 page holds the video, the image, the lens, the capstone. The handout is your companion, the place you write your answers down. The teaching is on the site. So go and print your handout and let's get started. So here's what I want you to be watching for in chapter 6. Steinbeck is going to bring us back to the exact same pool where the book began. The same water, the same sycamores, the same green place. He's taking us a full circle on purpose. So read it slowly and ask yourself the whole way through, what's the same here and what isn't? When you finish, tell it back. Close the book first, and then just 3 to 6 sentences in your own words on your printout. Give me a narration and tell me what happened. If you can't remember something, let that go. Don't let that stump you up, as I always say, because what you forgot is telling us something too. Again, we want to learn to give our best effort and put our full attention into whatever we're doing. And that's why this is not a large novel and we're not racing through it. Put your best effort, and you're going to learn a lot on how to focus very well when you're doing anything beyond reading even. So go ahead, read chapter 6, write your narration, take your time, and I'll be here when you're done. All right, guys, welcome back. So that was a lot to carry. So sit with it for a moment before you write anything else. Now, your question. It can be a find it, something that you could answer by looking at the page, or you can do a follow it, which is asking why rather than just what. A good one sounds like, what does George do with Carlson's gun at the end of the chapter? A weak one would be, what time of day is it? One matters and the other's just a fact. So write one question about chapter 6 and sit with this. Then open up the strong and weak example narrations in the app and hold those beside yours. Nothing to submit here. It's just for your own ear, just having a measuring stick on your narration to help guide you with that. All right, so we're going to look at our analytical questions here on the second page. So we have 2 questions, and give each question a real paragraph. So 1, at the very end, George tells Lenny the dream again. Even now, even at the end. Why? Who is it for? George tells Lenny about the rabbits, the little farm, the alfalfa. Even now, knowing, why does he do this? Take a moment and answer that. Number 2, Steinbeck brings us back to the same pool where chapter 1 began. What changed about that place and what hasn't? Hold on to both of these, the dream and the pool, because we'll look at each of these together in a few minutes when we get to the language. But for now, let's just let these questions sit. And some questions for you to sit with, just for your own thinking. You don't need to write anything down. What did you keep from the ending? What did you skip? And what does that tell you? So it's referring back to your narration. What details stuck and what didn't? And I'm questioning, maybe Steinbeck emphasized certain things. The way an artist, a painter might highlight something with some light, he might have highlighted some details for us too. The mercy question. Is this ending merciful? Who is it merciful to? And what does Steinbeck do with sentence length at the end? Where does a sentence suddenly get shorter and why? So sit with those questions, think about them. And next week also, when we do, you're going to have an option to reread or to watch the movie with parental okay, because what you've been reading, you'll be hearing. So make sure they know that. But these questions, when you're rereading or watching it, these questions, I hope they resonate as you're listening to it or seeing it a second time. All right, so let's move on to our existential lens. So we have spent 2 weeks with Camus and his boulder. And this week, we're going to read another great voice from that conversation, Jean-Paul Sartre. Read this piece on Sartre and the choices that we make. And then I want you to narrate back the short piece in your own words, just as you narrate a chapter. Here's why he belongs in this chapter of all chapters. Camus asked how we keep going in a world that gives no easy answers. But Sartre pressed on something even sharper, that we are defined by what we choose, not by what we intended, not by what we wished, but by what we actually did. Hold that next to George at the pool, and then ask the question you may not want to ask, but what does George choose, and what does that choice make him? There's no comfortable answer to this question, and that's exactly why it's worth a paragraph. All right, when you're done with that, we're going to go ahead and discuss this week's image. So if you go to the image on your webpage, in week 4, you're going to see Edward Hopper's Gas, which was painted in 1940. The same America, the same few years as this book was written. Now, I want you to look at it for a full 60 seconds before you read anything about it. So really just look at it. I'll be here. Okay. So let's notice it together, one thing at a time. Start with what's simply there. A little gas station at the edge of the woods, 3 red pumps, and a man tending them. Look around the picture for anyone else. There isn't anyone. There's no cars, no customers, just him and the trees and the road. Now look at the light. It's dusk. The day is ending. And while the station glows warm and electric, right beside it, the woods are going dark. That small pocket of light has a whole lot of darkness leaning in around it. Where have we seen that this summer? A small, safe place with a big, dark world pressing at its edges. Now let's look at the man. He's alone, doing his small order job at the very edge of the wild at the very end of the day. Does he remind you of anyone? Someone who just keeps doing the next thing in a world that's emptying around him? And now follow that road. It doesn't lead anywhere that you can see. It just bends off into the trees and it's gone. If that man climbed into a car and drove, where would he even be going? Now let's hold all of that beside George. At the end of the chapter, the dream is gone. Lenny is gone. And what's in front of George is a road exactly like this one, going on alone into who knows where. Also, look at the pumps. The little red flying horse. What is that? It's a Pegasus, right? A creature that's meant to soar. And here it's bolted to a pole at an empty gas station, going nowhere. Sit with that beside a book about people who dreamed of flying and never got off the ground. Then in the app, tell me what you noticed. Not what it means, but just what you saw and what it made you think of. Okay, so now we're going to go to our savoring the words. All right, sorry, I didn't staple this, so it's a little confusing. All right, so this is going to be section 3. So the craft that we're going to look at this week is the one that ties the whole book together. Repeated images. Something that Steinbeck makes you see more than once. A pool, a gun, a pair of hands, a water snake. Here's the principle, and I want you to write this down. What comes back gets weight, and weight makes meaning. What comes back gets weight, and weight makes meaning. When an image returns, the writer is asking you to notice. The second time you see a thing, you see it carrying everything that happened since the first time. And the biggest returning image in the whole book is this very place we've been standing in. It's the pool by the river. The book opens there and it ends there. So let's read it twice together and watch what changes. So go ahead and open your book with me to the very first paragraph of the book. In fact, I already read it on here with you. Okay. Everyone there? A few miles south of Soledad, the Salinas River drops in close to the hillside bank and runs deep and green. The water is warm too, for it has slipped twinkling over the yellow sands in the sunlight before reaching the narrow pool. On one side of the river, the golden foothills slopes curve up to the strong and rocky Gabilan Mountains. But on the valley side, the water is lined with trees, willows, fresh and green with every spring, carrying in their lower leaf junctures the debris of the winter's flooding, and sycamores with mottled white recumbent limbs and branches that arch over the pool. On the sandy bank under the trees, the leaves lie deep and so crisp that a lizard makes a great skittering if he runs among them. Rabbits come out of the brush to sit on the sand in the evening, and the damp flats are covered with the night tracks of coons, and with the spread paths of dogs from the ranches, and with the split wedge tracks of deer that come to drink in the dark. Listen to how that began. A warm afternoon light on the water, the Gabilan Mountains gold in the sun, rabbits in the sand, a lizard, deer coming down to drink, a heron in the shallows, and a water snake gliding up the pool. It's alive and warm and safe, almost like a little Eden. This is the place George tells Lenny to run to if there's ever trouble. This is the safe space. Now, let's read the very same spot at chapter 6. So we're going to go to, hold on, little page markers are falling out. We're going to go to page 99. As I read this, just in your mind, pay attention to what has stayed the same and what has changed. The deep green pool of the Salinas River was still in the late afternoon. Already the sun had left the valley to go climbing up the slopes of the Gabilan Mountains, and the hilltops were rosy in the sun. But the pool among the mottled sycamores, a pleasant shade had fallen. A water snake glided smoothly up the pool, twisting its periscope head from side to side, and it swam the length of the pool, and it came to the legs of a motionless heron that stood in the shallows. A silent head and beak lanced down and plucked out by the head. The beak swallowed the little snake while the tail waved frantically. Same pool, same sycamores, but the sun has left the valley floor and it's climbing the mountains. It's going out. And watch what Steinbeck does with that water snake. In chapter 1, it glided up the pool and it went on its way safe. Here, in the very first paragraph of the last chapter, a water snake glides up the pool again, and this time a heron stabs down, plucks it up, and he swallows it whole. That is not decoration for the setting. So ask the question on your page, what changed and why would Steinbeck do it? He brings us back to the exact same place, so we feel that circle close. And he lets the light go out of the sky so that the setting itself seems to grieve. And he takes that same peaceful image and he lets it be killed this time. So that before George even walks into the clearing, nature has already shown us in a miniature way what's coming. The strong taking the weak in the place that it was supposed to be safe. The setting tells you the end before the ending even arrives, right? And the pool isn't the only thing that returns here. The dream returns too. And this is the moment to slow all the way down. So let's read the dream retelling together and listen to the words that we've heard the whole book long about the little place, the rabbits, the alfalfa, and the two of them looking after one another. It's the same speech that George has told a dozen times, almost like a bedtime story, and Lenny asks for it again and again. But nothing underneath it is the same anymore. This is where the little details do all the work. So let's not hurry them. Let's just notice how George has Lenny look away across the river and see the place. Let's turn to page 105. And you're going to go down after the first full paragraph. Lenny said, "Tell how it's going to be." George had been listening to the distant sounds. For a moment, he was businesslike. "Look across the river, Lenny, and I'll tell you what you can almost see it." Lenny turned his head, and he looked across the pool and up the darkening slopes of the Gabilands. "We're going to get a little place," George began. He reached in his side pocket and brought out Carlson's Luger. He snapped off the safety, and the hand and gun lay on the ground behind Lenny's back. He looked at the back of Lenny's head, at the place where the spine and skull were joined. A man's voice called up from the river, and another man answered. "Go on," said Lenny. George raised the gun, and his hand shook, and he dropped his hand to the ground again. "Go on," said Lenny. "How's it going to be? We going to get a little place?" "We'll have a cow," said George, "and we'll have a pig and maybe chickens, and down the flat we'll have a little piece of alfalfa." "For the rabbits," Lenny shouted. "For the rabbits," George repeated. "And I get to tend the rabbits." "And you get to tend the rabbits." Lenny giggled with happiness. "And live on the fat of the land." "Yes." Lenny turned his head. "No, Lenny. Look down across the river, like you can almost see the place." Lenny obeyed him. George looked down at the gun. There were crashing footsteps in the brush now. George turned and looked toward them. "Go on, George. When are we going to do it?" "Going to do it soon. Me and you. You and me. Everybody going to be nice to you." This part gets me emotional. "Ain't going to be no more trouble. Nobody going to hurt nobody, nor steal from them." Lenny said, sorry guys, that always gets me. Lenny said, "I thought you was mad at me, George." "No," said George. "No, Lenny, I ain't mad. I ain't never been mad, and I ain't now. That's the thing I want you to know." The voices came close now. George raised the gun and listened to the voices. Lenny begged, "Let's do it now. Let's get that place now. Sure. Right now. We gotta. And George raised the gun and steadied it, and he brought the muzzle of it close to the back of Lenny's head. The hand shook violently, but his face set, and his hand steadied. He pulled the trigger. The crash of the shot rolled up the hills and rolled down again. Lenny jarred and then settled slowly forward to the sand, and he lay there without quivering. George shivered and looked at the gun and then threw it from him, back up on the bank near the pile of old ashes. Notice how quiet and gentle George's voice is and where it catches. Notice Lenny's face, happy, trusting, completely somewhere else, while George is right here, carrying what he's about to do. The words are a comfort, and they're also a goodbye. And they're both at the very same time. Remember question 1 on your handout, why does George tell the dream again, and who is it for? I'm not going to answer that for you, but this is the passage where the answer lives, and you'll only find it if you slow down enough to feel the space between what Lenny is hearing and what George is about to do. On your handout, there's a chart, and the pool is already filled in for you as an example, where it appears and what it carries. So your turn is you're going to find 2 more repeated images. Where do they show up? And what have they come to carry by the end? All right, so we're on to the last little section here with your keep, our commonplace book. So I want you to copy a passage exactly as it is in the book and add a short note about why it matters to you. And I'll tell you honestly, this is the chapter where students most often keep a line that they can't quite explain yet. And that's fine. Just keep the line anyway if that happens. Some lines can take years to finish landing. I will tell you, every time I have read this book, first time I read it was when I was 14, and I'm a few years over that now. And I've taught it a few times. Every time I come back to this book, I bring my life experience and it means something different. Sometimes the lines stay stagnant in my mind and then all of a sudden light up. So be patient with that if you don't have something to say about that one yet. All right, let's look at our week's rhythm in their capstone. So the rhythm is on the handout, so print it and watch the video. Here we're going to enter the great conversation. So compare your narration, do your capstone work, and turn it in. The capstone this week is the boldest step of the whole summer. So you're going to write inside the book itself. Choose one short moment from chapter 6, half a page, and I want you to rewrite it from inside the character that you've chosen to follow's head. What are they seeing, hearing, thinking, holding back? And if your character isn't in the scene that Steinbeck wrote in the last chapter, invent where they are at that exact moment and write what's happening there, staying faithful to who they've been all summer. The full assignment is on your capstone page, so please read it there. And your relation study, another 40 minutes by now, the shape of what you're making should be starting to show. So when you're done with all of this, turn in your work on Google Classroom, take photos or scan. You don't, again, need to retype anything. I don't want you to do double the work. So before we close, I want to just bring one big question to the surface, the kind that's worth carrying with you long after this course. Why do we still read this book? It's short. It's a sad book about 2 poor men on a ranch in the 1930s. And it ends in one of the worst ways that it could. So why has the world kept it on the shelf for almost 100 years? Why do we call a story like this a classic? Here's what I think. A classic isn't a book that makes us feel good. It's a book that keeps telling the truth about being human, no matter which generation picks it up. And this little book is full of true things. It knows how badly we all want a place of our own and someone to look after us. It knows how the world tends to treat the people who are weak or slow or old or alone. It knows that even love can be backed into an impossible corner. None of that has gone away since 1937, and none of it has gone away in us. So, when a sad story does its work on you, it isn't only making you sad, it's making you bigger. It's letting you practice caring about a person that you'll never meet so that you get better at seeing the real people right in front of you. That's why the great sad books are for. They don't leave us gloomy, they leave us more awake and more merciful than they found us. And that is why this one matters and why it was worth every hard page. Here's a living idea that I'd like to leave you guys with. An ending doesn't undo what came before it. It asks you what all of it was worth. Sit with that as you close the book. And one heads up for next week. This part is for your parents just as much for you. So let them see this if necessary. Next week, you're going to have a choice to either reread the whole book, which it's short, or you can watch the film version, the Gary, I can't say his name, Sinise's of Mice and Men. If the film is the way that you want to go, just ask your parent first and watch it together. Remember, the hard language that we've been meeting so carefully on the pages, it gets said out loud. So remember that. And also, the ending you just read plays out on screen. So it's a good film. It's worth your time, but just make it a family decision, not just one that you make on your own. And if you have younger siblings, keep that in mind too, please. Next week, week 5, we'll go over, and I've called it our second sight. We'll go back through the whole book. And I promise you, it will be a different book. I'll see you guys there.